Now, what are some of the most important methods of propaganda that you understand, that you know about, that people can recognize and decipher to strip away the power that it has?
There's so many multifaceted methods of manipulation. I mean, I covered these for 1.5 years on my podcast. The propagation of solipsism is a big one. The propagation of a wrong view of human nature is a huge part of mind control techniques and propaganda that they use. That's why they always want to show you the worst things that that the average person is doing to each other on the nightly news. You know, they don't want to cover how bad and dastardly government's deeds are, but they want to cover how bad the average human around your corner, how bad their deeds are, because they want to paint this negative picture of human nature into people's minds. You know, there's obfuscation techniques. There's just the negative worldview. That's the big one. Like, human beings are incapable of changing. That's a huge one. You know, it's not that we're incapable of changing. We're not engaging the will to change. It's possible. It just requires willpower put behind it. You know, that's like saying, well, it's impossible to lift that rock. No, it's just very heavy. And you're probably going to need about 100 people to lift it. But can it be lifted? Yes, it can. If you get 100 people over here that say, yes, I will help lift that rock, it'll get lifted. You know, that's the great work. People don't want to understand the difference between can, should, and will. There's a difference between all of those things. There are things that can be done but should not be done. There's a difference between can it be done and will it be done. Yeah, it can be done, but maybe it won't be done. There's a difference between, you know, should this be accepted or not? No, certain things should not be accepted. Certain people should be doing certain things. You know, we have to understand there's a place for all of those terms. Some people in the New Age sector say you should never say should to somebody. And I say, I'm sorry, repeat that again. You should never say should to somebody. You just said you should to me about not saying you should to somebody else. You know, they just can't even hear their own contradictions. They can't even hear the verbal diarrhea that escapes their mouth. Okay? But this is what we've come down to. We've become a society of wusses that doesn't want to have any conflict amongst their peer group. So we are self-policing in what we will say. You know, nobody's telling me what to say. You come up to me and you bring up a topic on the street to me. I'm giving you an earful of what I know, not what I believe, what I know to be the case. And if I don't know about it, I'm usually dead quiet about it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know much about that, so I can't speak on it. But you know what? There's plenty that I know. This bullshit about not knowing anything also, there's a technique. There's a big technique, Keith, about, all I can say that I know is that I know nothing. Full of fucking shit. How's that? I know a hell of a lot. And I earned that knowledge by hard work. Nobody's going to tell me I don't know anything. There's plenty I don't know. Would never claim to know everything. Never would make that statement in a billion years. There's so much I don't know, you could fill universes with what I don't know. But you know what? I also know a hell of a lot. You know what I do know a hell of a lot about? I know a hell of a lot about the human condition. I know a hell of a lot about how it got this way. And I know what's necessary to secure real freedom. I know just about everything there is to know about those things, because that's what common sense needs to be. And I took in that common sense and I know it. I don't claim that I know it. I do know it. And the damn problem in the world is that most people don't know those things. And that's why we're all being enslaved, me included, which other people don't have a right to do through ignorance. That's what it all ultimately comes down to. And let me tell you something. Yes, the big techniques, big propaganda techniques, solipsism, there is no such thing as truth. Moral relativism, there is no such thing as the objective difference between right and wrong. We can make that up. Worldview, human nature. Human nature is fundamentally bad. People are just this way and it'll never change. Worldview, change is impossible, okay, of happening. This is poisonous worldview propaganda. Look at your neighbor. Yeah, you look at the hideous deeds people right in your own neighborhood do. to get people distrustful and divided. Race baiting, okay? Gender baiting. All of these things. These are all methods of propaganda. And we can go on and on and on. You know, how about the poisoning of the food, water, and air supply that negatively affect human physiology and the central nervous system and the brain? We have to, that's a form of brainwashing and negative propaganda, because if you don't have your physical mechanism right, how are you going to understand what's going on around you and what it means? You're not going to come to the correct conclusions. You're not going to be able to accurately process the information that's given to you. So that's a big part of their control system. You know, and people still don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to acknowledge fluoride as a poison, an industrial waste product that acts as a poison and is the main ingredient in rat poison. And we're adding it to the water in a way that you can't even control the dosage of it. You know, how many people are even filtering their water with a good reverse osmosis system? You know, no, keep drinking the fluoride. Yeah, it's helping us think so clearly. You know, all the additives and poisons in the food, and then the chemtrails in the air. You don't know how many alleged anarchists have told me there's no such thing as chemtrails. There's no such thing as particulate aerosol spraying, that they actually believe that this is water vapor.
Aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat, in much the same way that volcanic eruptions
stays up there for 8 hours. And then, you know, the conditions are the same. Two planes are flying right alongside of each other. One's got a huge plume behind it. One has nothing behind it. At the same atmospheric conditions and the same altitude. You explain that to me through thermodynamics and fluid mechanics properties. Please. Because this is what I went to school for engineering for at an Ivy League college. I attended the University of Pennsylvania for engineering. And I took classes in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, fluid dynamics, you know, all of those things. But I can't speak on it. I know nothing about the science of it. And yet some imbecile who has not taken like even high school physics will come along and say, oh yeah, that's all water vapor. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, boy, at all. And that's how I'll say that to somebody on the street that tries and propagate a lie to me that I do know isn't true. You don't know what you're talking about at all. Not even a little bit. And most people are too afraid to do that. Most people will just, yeah. No, you're wrong. You don't know the truth of the matter. You don't know the science of the matter. The end. You're wrong. Okay? You go and ask somebody, okay? Just here's one for the 9/11 denier crowd, okay? Go and ask any pilot, okay? Can you fly a 757 at over 550 miles per hour velocity at 800 feet of altitude? He will laugh you out of the room. Why don't they land planes at 550 miles per hour? You go get on a plane, just look at go into the flight statistics on the back of your chair there on a nice flight, if they have that, and just watch how fast is the flight going when it takes off and lands. Why isn't it going at 580 miles an hour? It's only doing that up above the weather. There's a reason for that. It's called basic physics, dynamics, fluid mechanics. You know? But you have imbeciles who didn't even pay attention to algebra in grade school that want to tell people who know about how scientific laws of dynamics work in nature, and they want to say, this is just water vapor. I mean, they're clowned out of their minds. Clowned out of their minds. But this is yet the world we live in, Keith. This is the world we live in where, because the internet exists, everybody's an expert. You don't have to do any study or real understanding. You don't have to actually do the equations and break it down and understand this is why it works this way. No, you could just make the claim and that magically makes it true because, hey, we're the arbiters of truth. There is no such thing as truth. It's all just opinion. It's all a matter of how I feel today, you know?
I was actually on a plane to the Denver International Airport, and and the guy sitting next to me was a pilot, and I asked him how accurate is the movie Flight with Denzel Washington, and we talked about that, and we ended up getting on 9/11, and I'm sitting next to the window, and he's in the aisle seat. And, I can see him wrestling with something. He wants to say something. He takes off his seatbelt and reaches over me and points out the window and says, "Look at that building right there. That's the equivalent to the Pentagon. I know with my experience that I could not fly this plane into that building right there. That was the average Pentagon size." And it was so interesting to hear someone, you don't exactly have to know about Operation Cyclone to know that 9/11, the official story, isn't true. And this guy, just with his knowledge of being a pilot, was able to refute something like that. So it's incredible that they can still get away with false flagging their way to wars.
The population is so ignorant about basic physics, basic laws of nature. It doesn't really surprise me. It's like taking candy from a baby. If you have a population that's that dumb and isn't interested in real education, it's like somebody who's never ever added numbers or subtracted numbers in their entire lives, and they go into a store and the person behind the counter says, "I'm going to rob the hell out of this person," and they hand them a $20 bill for a pack of chewing gum, and they hand them back a dime and say, "Well, there's your change, sir. Go along your way." That's the equivalent of what we have today. That's the equivalent of the knowledge differential that exists today in the world. You have a population that's that dumb. And I'm telling you, don't expect the rulers to educate them. We, as awake people within the population, need to become the real educators. We need to become the real education system. And we have the venue for doing that. We have the classroom to do that with millions of people, and it's called the internet. But how many are doing it? This is my contention. This is why I have a problem. Look, if 1 million people were doing this, I could say, you know what? We gave it a shot, and they're really unteachable. But there aren't 1 million teachers of natural law. There aren't 1,000 teachers of natural law. There aren't a goddamn 100 teachers of natural law in the world. Because they see how hard it is to start something. That's the hardest part of any process, is getting it going. Inertia. It's one of the physical laws, folks. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Objects in motion tend to want to stay in motion. Okay? When an object's at rest, like humanity's consciousness, it tends to want to stay there. We need to be the ones to put it in motion, and that's going to require the most force in the process. Anything you start trying to roll when it's at rest, you have to initiate the most force in the process to get that done. Then once you finally got it rolling, it's not as hard. But we're not at that stage yet. We're at the stage where it's sitting at rest. Okay? We need more teachers. I don't know how many times I could say the word more teachers of natural law, and unless we get more teachers of true objective morality and the laws of nature, we are not going to get out of this mess as human beings. We are going to stay enslaved. Understand that the root causal factor is the ignorance of the occult and natural law, and that there are moral laws in place that govern human behavioral consequence. We don't understand that. We're staying right where we are in the chains that we have earned.